Good morning, guys, and welcome to the Tuesday, June 4th edition of the MMAOB Daily Show. I'm your host, as always, Adam Martin. Going to be taking you through the latest news in MMA. First off, you can find me on Twitter at MMAdamMartin. You can find this podcast at MMAOddsbreaker.com and on our YouTube channel. Of course, I write for MMAOddsbreaker.com. I also write for SureDog.com, BJPen.com, MMAnews.com, and MMAratings.net. So be sure to check all those websites out, guys. First off, I have a little bit of a cold right now, so if you hear me cough, I really apologize for that, but I'm not feeling 100% today. I got a lot to talk about today, a lot of fight announcements, a couple of retirements, and a little bit of news I can share at the end of the show about recent fighters released. But first and foremost, I just wanted to say that I met up with a bunch of guys from the MMA media in Toronto last night, which was awesome. We used to get together quite a bit, actually, every couple of months, I'd say. But James Lynch was kind of the guy who set it up. He's obviously moved away. My former podcast co-host, good friend of mine. He's living in BC now, working for the Score out there. But he was back in town. He's actually going to be in Chicago this weekend. So he dropped by the Score Studios in Toronto this week. On the way there, we set up a nice meeting last night, which was cool. He was there, James Lynch, of course. My friend Steve Jeffrey from The Hammer. He's a great guy, too. Really good friend of mine. It's Tim Bissell from Bloody Elbow, another good friend of mine. Alexander Lee from MMA Fighting. And Michael Hutchinson, who used to work for Bloody Elbow. He actually retired recently at age 25. He got out of the MMA business at age 25. So good for you, Michael, and congrats on your engagement, buddy. And he's doing his MBA, so good for him, man. I mean, listen, like, it's a tough business. It really is. And Michael was a really good writer, too, but he found something else that he liked doing better, and that's, you got to respect that. So, I'm still here grinding, though, guys. I've been doing it since 2011, getting paychecks, talking about MMA since 2011. So, you guys know I love being here, love talking about the fights. Let's get right into them right now. There were quite a few fight announcements. I'm going to talk about them right away. UFC San Antonio. There was a couple of fights announced for that card. That's on July 20th in San Antonio, Texas, at the AT&T Center where the Spurs play. So first off, lightweight bout between James Vick and Dan Hooker. Like this fight a lot. James Vick, 32 years old, 13-3 record. He's actually on a two-fight losing skid right now against Paul Felder and Justin Gaethje, but still very dangerous guy, very tall for the division, 6'3", long reach. Just a good fighter. Hasn't looked great lately, obviously, but before his recent skid, he was on a 4-fight win streak. He was finishing pretty much everyone he fought, so he's definitely a solid fighter. And I think you could say the same thing with Dan Hooker, 29 years old from New Zealand, 17-8 record, coming off of a knockout loss against Edson Barboza. Probably the beatdown of the year last year, besides maybe Shevchenko versus Cachoeira, but a beatdown for sure. Before that, though, he did win 4 straight fights by finish. So this guy's very dangerous. He has knockout power. He has submission ability. Basically, all of his wins in the UFC are by finish. Actually, they all are. So the guy's super dangerous. I think he matches up actually pretty well against James Vick here. He's a pretty tall guy. He has a lot of finishing power. But James Vick will be fighting in his hometown, or I shouldn't say hometown, but close to his hometown here in San Antonio. He's a Texas boy. Texecutioner, of course, is his nickname. I'd assume James Vick will be the favorite here just because he's fighting close to home. He's obviously got a lot of experience in the octagon. He's got some good wins, probably better names than Dan Hooker, but I'm not ready to write Dan Hooker off just yet. 29 years old. He's still pretty young. Yes, the fight against Barboza was a beatdown, but the guy's pretty good, and he matches up, I think, well against James Vick. If he can touch his chin, you can knock him out. So, I'd favor Vick, as far as betting line goes, but I think Hooker could win this fight. So definitely curious to see what the line is for that one. Also announced for that card is an intriguing bantamweight bout between Ray Borg and Gabriel Silva. Ray Borg coming off back-to-back losses against Casey Kenny and Demetrius Johnson. I picked Kenny in the last fight. It was a big upset, I guess, as far as odds go. I wasn't surprised though. Ray Borg has built a lot of stuff the last couple of years. He has really fought the last couple of years. He's a talented guy. He's only 25 still, which is very surprising. He's been in the UFC since 2014, and he's still only 25. So he still should be getting better, but he's dealt with a lot of personal issues and a lot of injuries, and obviously with his son and being very sick, it's been very, very tough on him. UFC obviously has a soft spot for this guy. They're going to keep giving him fights. I don't think they'll cut him anytime soon. He's a really good fighter when he's healthy, but obviously he hasn't really been. And he's taking on Gabriel Silva here, 24 years old, making his UFC debut here. He's undefeated, 8-0, 4 wins by stoppage, coming off of a knockout win in LFA just a couple weeks ago. Before that, hadn't fought since 2017, so he's actually had quite a bit of layoff. And before that, it was 2015. So this guy's barely fought. He made his debut in 2011. Has fought 8 times, so it's like once a year, which is crazy. Actually, he started fighting in the 16 as a pro. So the guy's definitely been inactive over the years, but he's looked impressive when he's fought. I don't know. It's a tough one to call. I mean, Ray Borg is a really talented guy. He has tons of experience in the octagon, but the Silva guy looks interesting too. I'd have to wait and see just I don't know. I have to wait and see how I watch more tape on the Silva guy before I can really determine who should be favored here. But Ray Borg has a big name. He probably will be favored. I don't know though, guys. I think the Silva guy definitely, from what I've seen on paper at least, he looks dangerous. Got some good wins, but again, I want to see more from him before I can commit to making a pick in that fight. I have till July, so no worries there, no rush. What else here? Oh, UFC 240, you got another fight. Really interesting one, actually. Middleweight bout between Krzysztof Jotko and Marc-Andre Barrios. So this is kind of an interesting fight because Jotko, he was actually basically going to retire. He's only 29, but he had lost 3 straight fights. He'd been knocked out by Brad Tavares and Uriah Hall and said he was going to retire, and then came back and beat Alan Amandovski a couple of months ago in Russia. It was a good win. He looked good in that fight, really good actually. And now he's taking on Marc-Andre Barrios from Montreal. From Montreal. And Barrios had a disappointing debut against Andrew Sanchez in Ottawa just actually last month. So he just fought recently. He lost the fight, so I'm surprised the UFC is doing a winner versus loser matchup. They seem to like Barrios, though. There's not very many Canadian guys that have, I don't know, that it factor, I guess. They might think he does. I'm not so sure. I thought he could beat Sanchez. He didn't. His wrestling needs work. And to be honest, I think his camp maybe made a mistake here. They probably should have just told him, hey, go back to the gym and work on wrestling, because I don't think he's ready for Jotko. Jotko's going to probably take him down and beat him up. This is a tough matchup for Marc-Andre Barrios as long as Jotko gets the takedown. If he can stuff the takedown, which I don't think he can, he could definitely knock Jotko out. Jotko's chin is questionable. But I just based on the Sanchez fight, I mean, I'd say Jotko is just as good of a wrestler, if not better, than Sanchez. So to me, it's kind of a bad matchup for Marc-Andre Barrios. Kind of a strange matchmaking here, winner versus loser. It's in Barrios' country. It's in Edmonton. I don't know. I think Jotko probably wins this fight, guys, to be honest. So kind of a strange matchup here, but it is what it is. Another interesting middleweight fight. This actually was announced, I think, last week. I didn't get a chance to talk about it yet. Ian Heinisch is taking on Derek Brunson at UFC 241. Pretty solid fight here, actually. Heinisch obviously called out Brunson. Brunson said, sure. Brunson coming off of a decision win over Theodoro in Ottawa last month, and Heinisch coming off of a decision win over Antonio Carlos Jr. last month. Man, Heinisch just looked good in the UFC. He's on a 5-fight win streak right now. Only lost once in his career. He's got really, really good cardio, and that's probably his best weapon, especially in this fight against Brunson, a guy who can tire as the fight goes. He's an explosive guy, doesn't get that first-round knockout and get tired. It's a tough one to call, guys. Brunson's very, very talented, and when he's on, he can knock anyone out, and he's got a ton of experience. But Heinisch has looked really good. It's a tough one to call. I'd say it's close to a pick'em. You know what? I wouldn't be surprised if Heinisch was a dog again. He seems to always be a dog. Doesn't get the respect he deserves. But I think he can probably grind this one out. If he doesn't get knocked out early, he could probably grind out 2 of the 3 rounds. Again, though, I mean, Brunson's very talented. So a good fight. I'd expect Brunson to be slightly favored here just based on the name value and his UFC experience, but Heinisch definitely has a chance to win this one for sure. Definitely. I like that fight. That's a good matchmaking there by the UFC. Here's another one. Joaquim Silva versus Nasrat Haqparast added to UFC Sochi. So let's go here. Joaquim Silva. Let's see what his record's like right now. Okay, so he's 11-1, 3-1 in the UFC. Knocked out Jared Gordon in a tremendous fight last year at UFC Milwaukee. Amazing fight. Also knocked out, actually he's 4-1, excuse me. He knocked out Andrew Holbrook, also beat Reza Madadi and Nazareno Malajri by decision, and lost the decision to Vince Pichel. This guy is pretty good. Now that he's back from his layoff, he seems to, be on a more consistent fight schedule. I think he's a really good fighter. Nasrat Haqparast, he's also good. He's only 23, so he's super young. He's 2-1 in the UFC. Lost to Marcin Held and then beat Thibaut Gouti and Mark DKC in back-to-back fights. Also one fight in the night against Thibaut Gouti. So 2 guys coming off a fight in the nights. I like the matchmaking here quite a bit. But I think you got to probably go with the younger guy here in Haqparast. As good as Silva did look against Jared Gordon, I don't know. I think Haqparast, with that 7-year age advantage, 23-30. The guy looks really good. Very talented guy. Young, like I said, younger. He's got some really solid wins. Both guys do. Good fight, good matchmaking, but I would assume Haqparast probably is the favorite into this fight. What else do we got here? A couple other ones here, guys. UFC 242. So Curtis Blades versus Shamil Abdurakhimov is official now. I already talked about this fight a couple weeks ago. I like Curtis Blades in that fight. I think Shamil's look really good lately. His boxing looks good. His wrestling's good, but I think Curtis Blades is one of the best guys in the world, no doubt about it. Also on that UFC 242 card, they continue to add names to that card. this one's not really big names by any means, but Teemu Packalén 1-2 in the UFC, coming off a knockout loss against Mark D. Casey 2 years ago, so he hasn't fought in a while, taking on Ottoman Azatar, the Bulldozer, 11-0 from Germany. The guy's a beast. He's knocked out a bunch of guys. Last 3 opponents knocked out in brutal fashion. He doesn't have any UFC experience, but I mean, Teemu Packalén's a guy who just got coming off a knockout loss, coming against a guy who's on a nice knockout streak. I'm assuming he has some sort of background from the country, from a Muslim background. I would definitely have to go with this Ottoman guy. I mean, just based. First off, you have to fade Packalén, and second off, I mean, this guy's probably gonna knock him out. So yeah, I would definitely favor this guy. It looks like a setup fight by the UFC. He's also a little bit younger at 29. And his brother actually fights in the UFC, Abu Azatar. He actually fought last year in the UFC Germany card. So brother and brother in the UFC now. I think that's it for fight announcements. Yeah, that's it. So quite a few fights, but I'm sure there'll be more by the time I do this podcast tomorrow. Excuse me, guys, I'm on a cough here. A couple of retirements to talk about. First off, Jimmy Manuwa retired from MMA. So I don't think it's a huge surprise that he did retire. I mean, he's coming off of that brutal knockout loss against Alexander Rakic last weekend. I mean, this was a terrible knockout loss for him, and he's still knocked out 3 of his last 4 fights. Rakic, Santos, in the last 6 months alone. So this guy's been getting KO'd in brutal fashion. He had a pretty good career. He finishes his career at 17-6, 39 years old. He had a late start to the game in 2008, so he started when he was 28. It's kind of a late start, late bloomer, but had a good career, and he knocked a lot of guys out. Won quite a bit of performance bonus money in the UFC. Probably was one of the better English fighters, I'd say. English-based fighters, anyways. He's obviously not born there, but he had a good career, and especially for a light heavyweight. He was a top 10 guy for a long time. He's a top 5 guy for a while, I believe. Good for him. Good for you, Jimmy. But definitely the right move to retire here, and it saves the UFC just releasing him straight up. Again, I don't think they would have cut him. I talked about this the other day. He's an exciting guy. I think they would have kept him around for a little longer either way, but he's ended up retiring anyways. So that saves the UFC the embarrassment of having to cut a guy who's an exciting fighter. Another guy who retired, not in UFC, but in Bellator and Ryzen, King Mo. King Mo actually retired from the game. King Mo, 38 years old. He decided to hang him up. 21-9 and 1 no contest record. I mean, this guy had a really good career, I think. King Mo was, I think, one of the most underrated light heavyweights probably of all time, to be honest with you. Just never fought in the UFC, so never had the chance to really show his skills on that big stage. I remember him a long time ago watching him in Sengoku when he came up. He obviously was a amateur wrestler, came up out of nowhere and basically in Sengoku and started knocking everyone out. First fight in MMA, knocked out Travis View. He's a longtime veteran of the sport with 100 fights. That was his first win. He also knocked out Mark Kerr, who at the time was one of the bigger names, I guess. The Smashing Machine, the documentary made about him. Also Mike Whitehead. He knocked a lot of guys out with names. Then the Mike Whitehead fight was in Strikeforce. Then he got signed, then he fought Gegard Mousasi at Strikeforce Nashville, the infamous thing with Jason Mayhem Miller and Nick Diaz and stuff. And he won a decision in that fight, and it was a huge upset win at the time. And he basically dominated Gegard Mousasi, took him down, beat him up. And then in the next fight against Strikeforce, Houston got upset himself against Rafael Fejal Cavalcante and got KO'd in the 3rd round. So definitely that was a crazy couple of fights for King Mo. Came back, knocked out Roger Gracie, knocked out Lawrence Larkin. Then that was overturned because he tested positive for PEDs. Came back and actually he had some issues with the commission, and the UFC had bought Strikeforce at the time. They released him, and he went and signed with Bellator. And in Bellator, King Mo had I think a pretty decent run. He knocked out Premisla Masala in his Bellator debut, and then another knockout loss against DeMayo Newton. I mean, that kind of showed his chin at that point, but a little questionable. That was a massive upset loss. And then came back, knocked out Seth Petrozelli and Jacob Noe, then lost another fight against DeMayo Newton by decision this time. Beat Michael Zayat, then lost the decision to Quentin Jackson. Went on a nice win streak against Justin Jacoby, Joe Vedipo, Chia Congo, Linton Vassell, Brett McDermott, Theodoros Asoukalis, and Yuri Prozaska, and actually won the Ryzen Heavyweight Grand Prix. I remember watching that card. I stayed up all night to watch that card, and he looked really, really good in that fight. And he knocked out Yuri, who we'll talk about in a second here. But at the time, that was a massive win. And King Mo was looking great. Lost to Phil Davis when he came back to Bellator, beat Ishii. then went back to Ryzen and got brutally knocked out by Mirko Cro Cop, came back to Bellator, beat Rampage in a rematch, and then got brutally knocked out by Ryan Bader in 15 seconds, got knocked out by Liam McGeary in another upset, and then went back to Ryzen in April, a couple months ago, and got knocked out by Yuri in the rematch. So King Mo suffered quite a few knockout losses at the end of his career. How many times? He was knocked out 6 times in his career. It started to add up, and he made the decision to retire. And I think it was a good call. It's actually really sad hearing what he said. He said he basically is having a hard time walking, and you'd have to imagine his he's taken quite a few hits to the brain. So very sad to see that he's taken so much damage in his career. But from all accounts, actually a really great guy from everything I've heard. Never heard a bad thing really about Mo. He had that incident again with that commission lady back in 2012 when Strikeforce released him. He said he had some choice words for her. You can go and Google that if you want to read about it. But I think from all accounts, actually a pretty decent guy. And good for him. I think they made the right choice to retire. He probably retired a little bit too late, to be honest with you. He's knocked out 3 straight fights. You don't want to see that. But I think at age 30, I don't see him coming back. Again, like Manuwa, both these guys, lots of knockout losses. You get knocked out that much, it's time to go. So at least he made the decision to retire and didn't come back to Bellator or Ryzen again and get another knockout loss. But yeah, good for Mo and Manuwa. I think both guys had pretty solid careers, and the sport will miss them, and the light heavyweight division will miss them. I mean, the light heavyweight division's always been weak in MMA, and you just lost 2 pretty solid light heavyweights, so that's too bad. I think the last thing I want to talk about here is, okay, so I don't know a ton about it, but last night at the dinner, one of the guys, no one I named, so no one that I named, but another person that was there, was talking about Elias Theodorou, and apparently he had spoken to Elias recently and talked about his release, and he told us that Elias got this letter from the UFC saying, yes, the decision loss against Brunson was part of the release, but there was other reasons for it, and we were kind of talking about that, and just like I said last week, he thinks it has something to do with Elias's allegiance or pro-marijuana stance, but not really the pro-marijuana stance, but the fact he was aligned with a certain cannabis manufacturer that kind of went against what the UFC was doing recently when they signed the deal. So he thinks that part of it. So I'm not surprised by that. I think that, like I said, I thought that could have been an issue too. But we don't know a ton about it. But it seems like it wasn't just his style. It looks like there was other stuff going on behind the scenes. Like I said, we never know what goes on behind the scenes, guys. It's easy to say, oh, this guy got released because he's boring, but there was other stuff going on. You don't really release a top-ranked fighter just because he lost 1 fight. Even if he was bored, you can talk to him and say, you get one more chance. But there was some other stuff going on. So, again, it's a shame Elias had to go. I like Elias. He's a good guy. Maybe not the most exciting guy, of course, but, a good fighter. He'll be back. He will be back. He'll probably fight. I don't know where he's going to go next. I think he'll fight again for sure. I mean, he doesn't have to fight. He's got other things going on, obviously, in his life. I don't think money is really an issue for Elias, but I think he does actually enjoy fighting, so I think he will be back at some point. But yes, I heard that it wasn't just the fight with Brunson. I heard there was some other stuff going on behind the scenes that we don't know about. So yes, there's always things that the media members and the fans don't know, that the matchmakers know, that we just aren't privy to. And it looks like that was part of the thing with Elias. So just want to mention that. I think that's all I want to talk about, guys. Again, check me out on Twitter at MMAOB, MMAOddsbreaker.com. I just posted my UFC 238 opening odds preview, so definitely check that out, just reacting to the opening odds. Truro.com, I have my Beating the Books and Insane Prop Bets. Check that out. MMAnews.com, I'm going to have 2 articles this week. One on the top five moments of Henry Cejudo's career and the top 5 moments of Marlon Moraes' career. Over at MMA Ratings, I just wrote one about Alexander Rakic, so that should be up hopefully today. And BJPen.com, I wrote one, actually, a couple articles. Last night, there was one that Kareem Zidane actually was talking about, a good friend of mine again, with Habib and his father saying that, hey, maybe we're not going to fight Poirier. It might be McGregor or Ferguson at UFC 242. So check that out. It's at BJPen.com. Also, there's another article about Juan Adams and talking about Greg Hardy. So check that out as well. Again, follow me on Twitter at MMAOB. This is Tuesday, June 4th, guys, and I'll be back tomorrow on Wednesday, June 5th to talk about more news in the world of MMA. Have a good day, guys.